remember that we are on Zoom. It's not the easiest to navigate. So if you could please use the raise hand function, keep your statements within the correct time frame. And when you are looking to speak, please just let me call on you first before you speak. Appreciate it. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Roll call of the members. Councilor Gino. Here. Councilor Guanasso. Here. Councilor McKenna.
Here.
Here. Councilor Morbido.
Here.
Here. Councilor Novoselsky.
Here.
Here. Councilor Powers.
He's here.
Here.
Councilor Powers is here. Councilor Rotundo.
Present.
Here. Councilor Sereno.
Here.
Here. Councilor Visconti.
Here.
Here. Councilor Zambuto. Here. And Council President.
Here.
Here. Quorum is present. Calendar item number 2, resolution of condolence for former city councilor Corey Abrams.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'm not, Councilor Rotundo had requested to read this resolution of condolences. Councilor Rotundo, do you feel comfortable with that? Or would you like me to?
I feel comfortable with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councilor Rotundo.
Whereas City Councilor Corey Abrams has rendered conspicuous, faithful, and honorable public service to the citizens of the city of Revere for nearly 50 years. And whereas Almighty God in his infinite wisdom has called City Councilor Corey Abrams to his eternal reward. And whereas the sad calling from our midst of our City Councilor Corey Ford Abrams leave a vacancy in the official family of the city of Revere that will be difficult to fill, and a memory that will long be cherished. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Revere City Council extend to the family of City Councilor Corey Ford Abrams, on behalf of the citizens of Revere, our heartfelt sympathy and sincere regret on their profound loss. And be it further resolved that in recognition of former City Councilor Corey Ford Abrams' service to the citizens of the city of Revere, that the City Council pay sincere tribute to his memory by spreading upon the official record of the Revere City Council a copy of this resolution of condolence, and by ordering that the flag at the Revere City Hall be lowered to half-mast in memory. In witness whereof this resolution of condolence is given at the Revere City Hall this 8th day of June in the year of our Lord 2020, and of the independence of the United States of America 243rd. Here it be ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Rotundo, Councilor Rotundo. At this time, I'd also like to ask the City Council to take a moment of silence in recognition of the passing of Corey Ford Abrams, and also recognizing his family's value to the city, and pay our respects with us. Thank you.
Calendar item number 3, approval of the journal of the regular meeting of May 18th, 2020.
So move. Favor? So ordered.
Calendar item number 4 is the Legislative Affairs Subcommittee report.
Councilor Morbido, would you like to discuss your Legislative Affairs Subcommittee?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. Today, the Legislative Affairs Subcommittee met and voted favorably to vote on an ordinance relative to food trucks. There were a few amendments for 5.10.50, Section A, to strike number 4, titled Garfield Ave, and add a designated location, and amending in that number position, North Shore Road, east side, between Centennial Ave and D. Holmes Street. Also, there was an amendment to strike the permit fee of $200 and amend it to $500. And if I missed anything, if the city clerk can fill it in.
There was also, we asked to reduce the Broadway applications or the ability to only have 2 at a time. Was that entered in?
Correct.
And then is that,
So, and that concluded the subcommittee. There was one item on the agenda and it was voted favorably.
yep, and that was
So we
voted
asked
on
for a roll call.
unanimously? Okay. Ordered on a second reading, the second amended reading. Ordered on a third and final reading, or third and final amended reading. Request for roll call for engrossment and ordainment.
Shall the city council approve an ordinance establishing regulations for food trucks as amended? Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso? Councilor Guanasso?
Muted.
Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Sereno?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Visconti?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the ordinance establishing regulations for food trucks as amended has been adopted by the city council. Calendar item number 5 is the zoning subcommittee report.
Councilor Zambudo, would you like to?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, the zoning subcommittee met earlier this evening. We had 2 items on the agenda. 20151 was a petition of Bernard Schramm, trustee for 257 Washington Ave Realty. There were some issues outstanding with that, and we decided to let that remain in committee until the next zoning subcommittee, which is, I believe, June 22nd. And so that will remain in committee. The other item was 20110, an amendment to the zoning ordinance of the city of Revere relative to small cell antenna installations. That was discussed heavily and voted out favorably with a recommendation to the city council to approve this ordinance. Thank you. I'd ask for a roll call.
Madam Clerk, roll call?
As amended, right? Correct.
Oh, actually, we're gonna, so on ordered on a second reading
As amended?
as amended. Ordered on a third and final reading as amended. Request roll call for engrossment and ordainment.
Shall the city council approve an ordinance regulating small cell wireless antennas as amended? Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso? Yes. Councilor McKenna?
Present.
Present. Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
No.
No. Councilor Sereno?
Present.
Present. Councilor Visconti?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the ordinance establishing regulations for small cell wireless antenna as amended has been ordered.
Mr. President, suspension of rules.
Suspension of rules.
Suspension of rules for reconsideration.
Hoping it will not
And hopefully
prevail.
will not prevail.
Reconsideration approved. Supported.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep. Get some new Wi-Fi.
Calendar item number 7 is a communication from the city auditor relative to the fiscal year 2021 budget appropriation order.
Mr. Viscay? This is, just, the councils all know, this is going to be going to Ways and Means Subcommittee. It's going to be discussed over the course of a week in front of Council of Powers, and we're going to have plenty of opportunity, but I think Mr. Fiscal wants to give us an overview. So go for it.
Sure, thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate everyone's patience while we put this budget book together. It's been a lot of changes in the budget due to some of the revenue shortfalls we've had, and you throw a pandemic in the mix there that chews up a lot of the time that put me behind. So I appreciate everybody's patience. You will notice that there are two tabs still missing documents: the capital improvement tab and the debt tab. So those sections will be coming before the subcommittee meets for on the budget. But I did want to get the main part out there with the 5-year forecast, the summary documents, the salaries, and the meat of the budget, as well as all the other documents that you're accustomed to seeing. So again, I just wanted to apologize for the late delivery. They were delivered to everyone's home today. And if anyone has any questions between now and Ways and Means, certainly reach out to me, and I'll do my best to get to everybody's questions. And again, if you have any feedback or you think you're missing something that you'd like to see in that budget, just let me know, and I'll try to modify and adapt it accordingly. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any councilors with any hands raised. I know there's a few attendees, including the mayor wishing to speak. So Mayor Arrigo. Mayor Arrigo, you wish to speak? There you go.
Good evening, Mr. President and members of the council. I just wanted to take the time to let all of you know that if you do have any questions during this process, we're here. Obviously, this budget cycle is a little bit different than what we've grown accustomed to, and I want to commend Rich and his team for being able to put something together that I think is our best estimates to where we're going to land for fiscal 21. I'll just remind everybody that we still don't have local aid numbers from the state. We are projecting a lot of revenue decreases, and you'll find that there's a combination of reductions in force and cuts, and the use of free cash to get us through this fiscal year or the next fiscal year. But I want to point out the hard work that Rich has done to get us to this point, and his team in terms of putting this together again during a pandemic and during some unprecedented times. As we go through the budget, I'm sure the council will have some feedback. But I think you will be hard pressed to find any more additional cuts that we could take. If you look at the total number of the total amount of spending that we're doing compared to what we project for fiscal year 20, there's a $2 million overall decline in total expenses. So this is certainly a lean budget, but it's one that reflects, I think, the best estimates that we have in terms of the conversations that we've had with our partners at the state level and what we know happening on the federal level. So again, I just wanted to make sure that folks knew that we would be willing to have any conversations that you want to have about the budget. And if there are any questions, my door is always open.
Thank you. And it looks like Councilor Rotundo wishes to speak. Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you to the mayor. Good evening, Brian. The question that I have is, and I'm not sure if we're at this point yet, is what type of reimbursement will we be getting back from the Fed for some of the expenditures regarding COVID-19, if at all?
Yeah, that's a great question, Councilor. So there's federal money and there's money around FEMA reimbursement, and then there is money that has been that's been available to the city from the federal government through the state government in the form of CARES Act money. And so we've got an allotment of money that we can use in response to COVID. And we've got, potential FEMA reimbursement. So I'll give you one example of something that we're planning to do, right? So we, with your support on the council, we took out $1 million from our rainy day fund to have money available for our response to COVID-19. Now, I'll admit, and I know our director of finance will admit as well, that we thought that there's no way we're gonna end up spending $1 million. But we'll ask for it, and we think that will certainly get us through. And we're at a point now where we have, I think we're close to spending that amount, and obviously a considerable amount of money went towards getting the Quality Inn fit as an isolation space. Now that money that we spent on the Quality Inn, we know we will get reimbursement from FEMA on, but that FEMA reimbursement can be a long time. So what we're going to do with the portion of money that has been made available at the state level, the CARES Act money, we're going to be able to cover the 25% that we know isn't going to be covered by FEMA. We'll cover 25% of that expenditure, and then we know the 75 will be covered by FEMA. So we are, looking to make sure that we're really stretching every penny of what's available. And one final thing I'll say about that is that the money that's been made available to the city, that CARES Act money that the state, that we have to apply to the state for, is strictly to be used on the response to COVID-19. So, for example, we can't plug our budget in our revenue losses in our budget with that money, unfortunately. And so we're hopeful that as time goes on, and I've heard that potentially as soon as the end of this month, Congress will come up with some with some kind of plan to have additional resources funded, getting down to the local level, the state and local level. And I know that there's been a hard push to make sure that any money that is made available to us is able to be used to fill our revenue gaps. So, although we have some difficult cuts that are taking place in this budget, I am optimistic that we will get through some portion of this year, and we'll have some additional resources available to us. And, we may not have to use the $1 million in free cash. And we may be able to start to bring some of the folks that we've had to, we've had reductions in force, that we can bring those folks back potentially, or that we can start to replenish some of the services that, in contracts that we've had to cut in this budget. So, I am, but we don't know that yet. And so we can't budget for that quite yet. So we're trying to make sure that we use every penny in a really thoughtful and kind of clear way that can stretch as far as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so this is
Thank
going to
you.
be referred to Councilor Powers' Ways and Means Subcommittee. It is Councilor Powers. Do you know when we're going to hold those? Let me unmute you. Hang on one second, Councilor.
I'm going to be getting together tomorrow with Ashley, and we're going to be setting up some times to hold these meetings. And I think it's important, because I think people, particularly with all of the problems we've had, are looking toward transparency with regard to the budget is concerned. And I think this is the perfect opportunity for us to let people know exactly where their tax dollars are going. And I don't know if the mayor is still here, Mr. Mayor.
I'm here, Council Powers.
I just had one question. I was, comparing, your recommendations from last year to this year, and I noticed in the combined police and fire, it's over, I think, $1.1 million. Is that due to pay raises or salary increases or whatever it might be?
the main driving force behind that is contractual, right? It's collective bargaining agreements and the raises that are that we've agreed on. And so there are no additional employees, and I'm pretty sure that the non-personnel budget as well has been decreased, but the bulk of that increase does reflect collective bargaining agreements. And one thing I'll say in terms of having those conversations with our collective bargaining agreements is that there was really no appetite to have a discussion around whether or not the increases that were slated in the agreements that have been formalized. There was no appetite to go back on those prior commitments. So we built a budget that included those commitments, but unfortunately has to include some cuts.
And I'm looking at the fixed costs versus 2020 and 2021 for retirement, et cetera. And that's probably over $1,200,000 if I'm correct. And I know that's something that you have really no control over. And but it's a cost that is going to be borne by the taxpayers in this city, and it's something I think that every taxpayer has a right to know exactly where every dollar is going in this city. And so we're going to be having these meetings next week. I would ask any ratepayers to tune in, and they'll get an idea of what the expenses are and why the any increases are there. Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Counselor. And
Thank you, Council. Just
Yes.
one quick note. The Councilor mentioned pension obligations. I would add health insurance, obligations to that. Those are the two really main drivers of
Those are all fixed costs.
their increases. Right, correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you very.
thank you, Counselor. And so this is going to be referred to Ways and Means Subcommittee. We do have an attendee in the audience that wishes to speak. Mr. Lampadek. Oh, I'm hitting it. You're hitting it, Ashley. We're both. Hey, would you unmute him, Ashley? Yeah, I'll let you do it. Go ahead. Mr. Lampadecchio.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Eric Lampadecchio, 43 Tapley Avenue. I just have two questions. The first you had already asked, what day and what time is that subcommittee meeting?
Well, Council is working with Ashley Melnick, and they're going to put those out. So you'll probably get those confirmed by tomorrow.
Okay. And then the second question would be for the mayor. I don't know if he's still on, but he mentioned possible reductions in force. I was just wondering how he might anticipate that would possibly affect a reopening of the Point of Pines Fire Station.
Good question. I know the mayor is still on. I can answer for him as well. I know that.
I can jump in, Mr. President. So in terms of the fire department, we don't have any reductions in force in police or fire. So the plans for the Point of Pines Fire Station are moving forward, and we'll continue, and we have we'll continue to make sure that that's a priority and that happens.
Good. Thank you. And so we're going to refer this to Ways and Means Subcommittee. Council Powers will put out his schedule for next week.
Mr. President, if I may, just a comment. It has always been my intention and my hope that once we get the station built, which is probably going to take at least a year and a half, at that point, the money's coming in from the development that's going on in the city. And I know the mayor has done a great job bringing hotels and other commercial development into the city, that the monies at that point will be available to staff that station. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Referred to Ways and Means Subcommittee. All in favor? Supported.
Calendar item number 8, communication from the city auditor relative to the employment of outside consultants.
Mr. Fiscal, there you are. He handed delivered the budget to me today.
Hey, we gotta do what we gotta do. Yes, I had, in doing the budget and trying to make everything balanced and try to find ways to be more efficient and just save on appropriation costs. There's something that's come about over the last couple of years with regard to some of the larger developments in the city where we don't have the special knowledge in a lot of cases for permitting and such. So there is a Massachusetts general law that allows us to set up a revolving fund to charge fees that would then go toward the city hiring the required professionals in whatever field it is, whether it's a water and sewer issue, whether it's a conservation issue, whether it's any kind of building permit issue where we would need some specialty knowledge to help us in our decisions. So what this law would allow for is for us to set that account up whereby we could charge the developers or a person seeking a permit, the fee required for us to hire the people that could go through all the paperwork and give the city a recommendation on what needs to be done for the respective projects. So it's just a way for us to, sometimes it's very hard to budget for these items. You don't want to budget too much and tie up dollars that could be spent on personnel or avoiding layoffs. So this is kind of a cleaner way to bring in some money and pay for the respective costs for those specialists that we may need. And I did attach the copy of the law for you, and there's a special accounting method for it. And then whatever money's left over has to be turned back over to the prospective developer and such. So I think it's just a way for us to kind of keep business going, hire the professionals we need to make sure all the development in the city's going the way we expect it to, and make sure that we dot all our I's and cross all our T's. So with your permission, I'd love to set that account up so that site plan review and the water and sewer engineer department has a means to bring in special consultants when they need it for some of these projects that may not be as routine as a single family house or so.
Thank you. Any councilors, any questions? We have Council Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Richie. Rich, does this affect any of the bidding or any of the purchasing of these consultant uses, as you want to call it?
I mean, we're still required to follow procurement laws in a lot of cases. Engineers and specialty trades like that are exempt from 30B, but yeah, certainly wherever there's a need to go out to bid for a service that is not exempt from Chapter 30B of the law, then we would have to certainly comply with those laws.
Thank you.
Any other councilors?
I may.
Council Visconti?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My apologies. To Rich, I assume the developers will be fronting that money, or will we be fronting that money and then get?
No, that would be a pass through from the developer, and it would just give us a means to put that money in the special revenue account and hire those consultants that we need. And I believe it's, the consultant itself has to have certain qualifications, 3 years experience, et cetera. I can certainly dive deeper into it if you need, but I did attach the law and such, but definitely a pass through. Again, that's why it would be beneficial to the city, so we don't have to front that money. If we appropriate $500,000 for that service and we only spend $100,000, that $400,000 could be put toward keeping people employed. So really just trying to identify cost centers and just like any other department, the revolving fund, the source of the funds and the use of the funds, and just a clean mechanism of addressing some of these larger, more complicated projects that I see coming down the road.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other councilors? Seeing none? I just had one question for you, Mr. Fiscal. Much like Councilor Visconti said, Ira, Councilor had already mentioned, is there going to be a cap? I mean, obviously, I don't want this to be a way of just, I understand money's coming in, money's going out, but is there going to be a cap on the amount that can be spent per expert annually or per instance?
I mean, I think the development of the fees that we would charge for these type of consultants may have to be teased out a little with the, site plan review, or maybe the city engineer or the superintendent of water and sewer. But I wanted to at least establish the mechanism by which we can bring that revenue in and pay for those costs, and then refund the difference of the money back to the developer as needed. But as far as what type of fee that would entail, I think that needs to be talked about and addressed formally, so that we have a basis of, so we're not just,
Okay.
shoot from the hip on these fees.
Yeah, and that was really my biggest thing. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't, there was some sort of oversight in the amount that's being spent. And I'm not saying anyone would, but it would help, if there's no cap, some people can get a little excited, and, you see a friend get a consulting job, and it's not exactly the way we want to go, but I understand where you're coming from there. So,
Yeah, I think that again, the law says you have to be, you have the relative experience in the field you're looking at and such. So yeah, I think all above the board, obviously, and I think the best mechanism for controlling those costs is that the developer themselves will be paying for the fee. So I'm sure they'll police it a
Right.
bit.
they don't want to just throw money out either. So, okay.
True.
So that is going to be a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Yes. Shall the city council establish a revolving fund for the employment of outside consultants in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts general laws, chapter 44, section 53G? Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso? Yes. Councilor Guanasso, yes. Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Sereno?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Visconti?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the revolving fund has been established. Calendar item number 9, communication from the city auditor relative to PEG access and cable related funds, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F and 3/4.
Thank you, Madam Councilman, Mr. Viskey, sorry.
Sure. As all you are probably aware, we do receive fees from the cable companies, franchise fees that come to the city, and those fees are used for the most part to run the public access television run by Revere TV. The Department of Revenue has been clamping down on revenues that come in that are spent without appropriation, and they've finally address this particular issue and give the cities and towns 2 options to account for this money. One is to set up an enterprise fund, similar to how we set up water and sewer and our solid waste operations. I thought that was a bit of a heavy-handed accounting method, seeing that our cable TV is run by a third-party nonprofit. However, we do have to comply with the law, so I'm recommending that we set up a receipt reserve for appropriation account per the Mass General Law that was just read there. And basically, when that money comes in, we're going to be required to put it into the city coffers. And then to spend that money, we will have to come before the council and have that money appropriated for the operation of Revere TV. So I've been in contact with Mr. Dunbar from Revere TV and spoke to some of the board members about what that mechanism would look like, and asked him to see if he can put together a budget of sorts to enlighten the council on exactly how they operate on a year-to-year basis. So the law is not new, but it's new for us. And if we don't adopt something, basically that money's going to have to go right to the general fund, and then it would become part of free cash. And then that free cash would have to be appropriated, any legal manner, which would be to run the, you can do it through a free cash appropriation, but I thought that the receipt reserve for appropriation was probably the more efficient method for us to comply with the Mass General Law. And then it would allow for Revere TV to come in and kind of give you an idea on how they're spending their money, and just make sure that we keep DOI happy. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
Okay. Thank you. I know we have a few councilors, Councilor Powers and then Councilor Rotundo. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rich, I just have two questions for you, and they border around the revenue issue. As we all know, that the restaurants have been closed for the past several months, 3 months probably. So we're losing that 0.75% mail and beverage tax as a result of those closures. And of course, the other thing is too, also the hotels, we're losing the 6% room excise tax with regard to the hotels. And I'm wondering just how bad that's going to affect us revenue wise. Do you have any idea currently?
Council Powers, this is relative to the Revere TV or the cable fund.
Oh, okay. I know this was just something I wanted to ask him before.
So, Mr. Fiscal, I'd rather just stick to this current topic, if that's all right.
Sure thing, Mr. President. Happy to answer that offline, Mr. Council Powers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys are gonna have a good week together next week, all right?
Got that
Councilor
right.
Rotundo.
Thank you, Rick, how are you today? Thank you for
Doing well,
showing.
thank you.
Quick question, what type of money are we talking about going into this fund?
Well, the money varies based upon the amount that is collected through Comcast, Xfinity, and now RCN. So obviously with RCN taking some of the market share from Comcast, it's varied a little bit, but we do collect upwards of about $800,000 a year total in these funds.
And there's no other place we can put this money?
Well, again, I'm a little, I need to educate myself a little more on the franchise agreements that were signed through the administration and you know, the way it's supposed to be spent. I believe 60% of it is spent on cable access, and the other 40% goes into a ETP fund that is that 40% does come through the council and is appropriated for certain types of things. But what the Department of Revenue is frowning upon, and a lot of people have been asking questions about, is just what the appropriation process is for that money, whereby there really wasn't any. So they're not big fans of funds not being appropriated by the appropriating body. So so I believe we're locked into the contract that we signed on how we spend it, but this will allow the council to have a better idea on just how that operation works.
My understanding is we could use this for technology within the confines of City Hall, correct?
Yeah, I believe the 40% is the money that we can use toward technology in City Hall and the schools, and the 60% is put towards the public education and government access television, PEG.
Thank you.
And Councilor Novoselsky, then Councilor Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Richie, I pulled up the DLS guidelines today, and the only requirement is to pick those options that you just mentioned. There is nothing else in their guideline release that says we have to do it. It all says we may do it.
Well, that's true, but the third option is that money then reverts to the general fund. So basically, the rule of thumb is that all revenue of the city is general fund revenue, unless there's a law that allows me to put it somewhere else. So now they've come up with these two options of putting this money into a special account. One would be an enterprise fund, and the second would be the receipt reserve for appropriation. So really, the third option is that you don't do anything with it, and it goes to the bottom line, and it would turn into free cash. And then, like I said, I don't know really how that would work with regard to our obligation to running the cable access television and such, but that is the third option, to do nothing and let it go to the bottom line.
If I had a drither, I would go with the enterprise fund, because I know the money would go directly. It would be for ETP money, and it would also be for cable. Cable is a private company. It has nothing to do with the city. We technically hire them, as you want to say, but I can't see us digging into their direct budget and seeing what they do or how they do things. They're a private company like banks. We have banks, all over the place. We deal with banks. We deal with cable. And I would rather see the enterprise fund or leave it in general fund. And we haven't had a problem. But
Well-
I would say, I would like to see it as an enterprise fund rather than anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Well, the only problem with leaving it in the general fund is that it still would require an appropriation, because I can't just turn, like right now, we get the revenue and we just turn it over to the Revere TV and they do their business. And like I said, the Department of Revenue is saying now that needs an appropriation, just like
this-
every other
I-
appropriation. So
Right. And so I know Council Sereno wants to speak, but this is going to be going to Ways and Means, so there's going to be a lot of time for conversation further.
Thank you,
Councilor-
Mr. President.
Okay.
I'll be brief. Thank you. So I was just going to say essentially what Councilor Novoselsky said. In the requirements for the DOR, it doesn't require that Revere TV present, a budget before the council.
Right.
And, oh gosh, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. They're not required by the DOR. So we're kind of asking them to go over and above the requirements and for all that they do for the city and whatnot. I agree with Councilor Novoselsky to put it into an enterprise fund. So thank you.
just to be clear, the same process would have to happen. I mean, it's if the council wishes to appropriate money without any idea on how it's spent, that's their prerogative. But
Mr.
it
Hold on,
still has to be
President.
appropriated.
So, Mr. President, from what I understand, the franchise agreements, which are made, have been made prior, there are certain percentages that are owed to Revere TV through those franchise agreements that, whether or not the city is aware of what they're spending it on or not, that's money that nonprofit organization is entitled to based on those franchise agreements alone. Procedurally now, with the DOR requirement, we'll have to appropriate it, but it's totally separate. It's a totally different thing.
So, and Councilor Rotundo wishes to speak, and then we have an attendee wishing to speak, and then we're going to put this into subcommittee. Councilor Rotundo?
Thank you. To be quite honest with you, I'm just thinking out loud. Would there be any appetite for a enterprise fund for recyclables? We could do the whole trash, or we could do part of it. Just putting that out there, and we can talk about it during committee. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, and so it looks, Councilor Visconti?
Yes, to you, to Rich. Is there a reason, Rich, are you reluctant to put it into an enterprise fund? Because I agree with Ira and Council Sereno on putting it into a enterprise fund. And above and beyond that, being a 501c3, I think they are. They file I believe they're regulated to have a review along with, I think this year that they may be getting an audit. Can't we just, if you need to see those documents, that would be sufficient for me. But to review their budget, I think it's, I don't think it's our place to review a subcontractor's budget. And I know we have enough on our hands with our own budget, never mind a company that is outside a subcontractor. Just my point of view.
Thank you, Councilor Visconti. And Councilor Guanasso, did you have a question as well? Or?
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
I mean, I just want to make it clear that this is city money. So whether we do an enterprise fund, which I think is actually more invasive, I would say, because then you have to create a budget, you have to estimate revenues, you have to certify the retained earnings and how they're spent. It's certainly doesn't matter to me. I'm trying to be the most efficient here on how we do this. And again, this isn't a witch hunt on Revere TV by the city auditor here. This is a requirement of the DOR, and I just thought that the lesser of two
I
evils
think you've
was
made it
the
very
fee
clear.
reserve account.
I think you've made it very clear. There's going to be a lot of back and forth. We understand your feelings. The councils have a few questions. I think that a lot of these questions can be brought into subcommittee. Councilor Ganasso?
Mr. President, all I was gonna say is, while I was muted, was that this show ought to be, the conversations we're having now are what subcommittees are all about.
Yep.
And I think what we're doing here is we're laboring a situation where we could bring all these good ideas to the table when we have a subcommittee meeting.
Yep.
And we
Mr.
can-
President, point of order.
Hang on one
point of
second.
Information, with all due respect to my counselor from Ward 3, subcommittee meetings sometimes are at 4:30 in the afternoon. Some of us work, we can't sometimes always log in to subcommittee meetings. So I think it is productive for us to be able to add our piece in the moment. Thank
With all
you.
due respect to the council who interrupted me, that when you aspire for a position, this is what it is. You knew what we had subcommittee meetings that meet prior to 6 PM. So
Oh,
you try to work,
please,
work
please.
schedule work for you.
Okay.
No disrespect, council. I'm just
Yeah.
telling you it should be.
Gentlemen, I understand. All I'm saying is we're not gonna go, we don't have to have constant back and forth. When people speak, they don't, speaking once on a topic that's gonna go into subcommittees, great. Speaking 2 times and 3 times, it does belabor the point. So, and then Mr. Biscay is gonna explain himself over and over and over again, and he's gonna do it again. So, Councilor Zamputo, we're gonna have one attendee, and then we're gonna move this into subcommittee. Councilor
Okay,
Zamputo.
so I guess I agree and disagree with our Director of Finance on this one. I think this should be a separate account. I don't think we need to see their budget. I think the city council can approve their invoices and that will settle, that will take care of the DOR requirements. So I don't think it needs to be specifically an enterprise fund, it can just be in a separate account where the money is shifted from Comcast and RCN and whatever to, and
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor. And we have an attendee wishing to speak, Mr. DeChico.
Hi, Ralph DeChico, Commission on Disabilities. I'll
Anyway.
take most comments for the subcommittee meeting, but I just had a quick question about how the funding goes, because I've been trying to, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, about how the funding goes, because I've been having discussions with different Commission on Disabilities. I know that there's the ETP funds and whatnot, but I'm just for edification, for programming and whatnot for the disabled communities, for the closed captioning, does that come out of the ETP fund, or would that be into a special fund if we designate the money into a special fund? Also for the card equipment, if we wanted to bring card equipment into all our council meetings to come into compliance for Title I and Title II, the ADA compliance for the meetings. So I'm not sure if we had a special funds, if that's what that money would be used for, because it is a private 501c with the city of with the Revere TV, how that would come about. So, but I can talk on the subcommittee meeting, but I'm not sure if Mr. Biscay, if that's where that would be, or if that comes out of the ETP fund, because I know I've been having discussions with a bunch of different commissions and disabilities through the state about bringing all council meetings to ADA compliant and Revere and TV and public broadcasting to have live closed captioning. I know there's been issues with them not being able to have the technology, but if we're getting them the money and, it should be done.
Thank you. And so, Mr. Viscay, if you can be prepared to answer those questions in subcommittee, we'd really appreciate it. I also would like to hear from Bob Dunbar, the director of Revere TV, and some of his feelings on this. I think it would only be right. I actually would have expected him on, but I think he's probably helping broadcast this session tonight. And then lastly, I want to just kind of say, I think that the council, we probably will all come in some sort of an agreement. I would like to take a look under the hood, but I'm not necessarily sure I want to change the spark plugs. So it's something that we should have some interest in and see what's going on. But this has been a good organization for a number of years, and I'm just not complying with DOR and is one thing, but just changing it all and going above and beyond maybe not necessary. So, all in favor of referring this to Ways and Means Subcommittee?
Aye.
So ordered.
Calendar item number 10, motion presented by Councilor Morbido that the City Council award a certificate of merit to Police Chief James Guido for his service to the City of Revere during his tenure as an officer of the law and in recognition of his retirement.
Council Morbido.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, let me say thank you, Chief Guido, for your 30 years plus of law enforcement, serving the people of Revere. In your tenure, you worked all the way up the food chain and became chief. So I really respect that. And I'd like to make an amendment to this motion and include all the city councilors unless they object to it.
I don't think anyone will
Noted.
object. Council
And I'll
Zambudo.
save my comments for a later date.
Thank you, Councilor. Council Zambudo.
Thanks. I'll be brief. I just want to acknowledge my friend, Chief Guido. We've spent a lot of years together, and some of the greatest ones were building the police station together, and some fond memories of what we went through to get that done. And done a great job, and we're certainly going to miss you. But I know you'll never be far from Revere because your heart is in Revere. And you always have that project management title of the police station to hold on to. So thank you for your service, my friend. Did anybody hear?
Council, we heard you. We heard you this time. Don't push your luck.
Oh, great.
Councilor Zanino.
Mr. President, I appreciate the time for a quick comment. You know, as the chair of public safety, I've had the opportunity to work with you a lot this year, Chief, and I've known you my whole life. So I'm sad to see you go, but I'm really looking forward to the chance to present this and give you the recognition you deserve. So congratulations.
Council Ganasso.
Thank you, Mr. President. The chief will recognize the night back a few years back in 2006, when I said to him that tonight we're going to go upstairs, chief, and we're going to make history. We're going to build a new police station, because up to that point in time, it's only was mentioned and mentioned and mentioned, and nothing ever happened. So I was very proud to say I was council president, and it's one of my actions that took place. I surprised a few councilors because they voted yes when they told me downstairs to vote no. So congratulations, Chief, on your retirement. You know what we did to get the job done, and we did a good job, and the station is a wonderful product for all our citizens. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jimmy, enjoy your grandkids, enjoy your trips on your motorcycle, and live life. Think about everything else. Just enjoy your life, Jimmy. Thank you, Chief. Take care.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Novoselsky. You're on mute.
Unmute.
Here we go. Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I know a lot of people want to say a lot of good things about Chief Guido, and we all know him as Jimmy. I've known him for mucho years, like everybody else has, and we've worked with him very closely. And you know, but I want to especially congratulate him on what's going on now. Here he is retiring in a couple weeks, and he's still deeply involved with this issue with the youth of Revere. And I want to congratulate him in that he's involved in it and loves what he's doing and making sure he does the right thing up to the last day. So Jimmy, congratulations. Thank you for all the good years, and we will miss you. Thank you.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jimmy and I worked together at the Boys Club when we were 16 years old. I think he's a little, I don't know if he's younger or older than me, but we worked together. So I've known him all these years. And I just want to say, congratulations, my friend. You've done a great job. You should be very proud. Enjoy your grandkids in your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief Guido, I remember the first day I met you when Rosalie was running for office back about 6 years ago. And I thought to myself, I'd always, had heard about you, but I thought, geez, what a character this guy is. And No, over the 6 years that I've known and worked with you, you've been a professional. You always tell it like it is. And, you know, your heart is truly here in the city. So I hope you enjoy your retirement with Will and all those beautiful grandkids of yours, and that you get to travel and go up to New Hampshire and do all those fun things. So we'll miss you, but I know you will be enjoying life.
Thank you, Council. We have Council Visconti, then Councilor Powers.
Chief, I just want to congratulate you on a successful career. Enjoy your retirement, enjoy the grandkids, enjoy Lil. And we all know your heart's in Revere, but you bleed Revere, and that's important. We're gonna miss you. I wish you the best.
Thank you, Council. And Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jimmy, my mind goes back to the blizzard of '78 when I was frightened to death with your driving. You weren't a police officer, I don't think, at the time, but when you were driving Joey and I around, we were getting groceries and stuff like that for the house, and you did a remarkable job. And now your day has come, and it's for you to go up to New Hampshire with Lil and those grandchildren and really enjoy them. And I know you will, and I know how much you adore your grandchildren right now. Thank you, Jimmy, for everything. Take care.
Thank you. And I'll just say that, Chief, I've known you for about as long as I've been in Revere, and I've always thought of you as a friend. More recently, you've been my friend, the Chief, and I'm glad that we'll be able to continue that relationship for a long time. You have put everything you've had outside of your family into the city of Revere, and you've made us proud. And I know that you, like Councilor Visconti said, you bleed Revere. I know you're not going to go far, but I do hope that you enjoy your time and enjoy your family, your beautiful family so much. So thank you for your time. Have any comments?
Thank you, councilors. Ashley, am I on?
Yes. You're on, Chief.
I just want to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. It's been a great ride. I have my 3 little grandchildren. It's time. I think I'm leaving the police department in a better place. My heart will always be with Revere, and I'm sure I'll be back in some capacity. But I truly want to thank all of you for your cooperation and all your help during my tenure as chief. And even before I was chief, organizing all the different events throughout the community. I've known all of you a long time, some councils that are no longer on the council. But I consider each and every one of you a friend and not just a colleague. And I will miss all of you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So all in favor on the motion?
Aye.
All in favor?
All right.
Calendar item number 11, motion presented by Councilors Visconti and Morabito, that the mayor request the License Commission to allow local restaurants and food and beverage retailers to expand outdoor table service by adding seating in private parking lots, streets, sidewalks, and other outdoor areas. This proposed measure will help restaurants that may not necessarily need the number of required parking spaces due to reduced indoor capacity.
Councilors, I appreciate this motion, and it's very well, especially from someone in the restaurant business. I should have let you know that the city has already been working on this to the point where the application for expanded and alternative outdoor seating is already just put online today. It is under www.revere.org/outdoor seating. It was put together by Ruben Cantor, the City Licensing Commission, Julie DeMaro, Tech Long, myself, and Bob Mara, and a few others helped out with formulating this support to restaurants in the city. So what you asked for, you got. Anything else?
Enough said.
Councilor Morabito? I was reading your mind. All in favor on the motion? We'll just place this on file.
All right.
Placed on file. Thank you.
Calendar item number 12, motion presented by Councilor Keefe, that the Revere City Council go on record as condemning the murder of George Floyd at the hands of 4 Minneapolis police officers. The Revere City Council further recognizes that decades of systemic racism and violence against people of color has had a far-reaching negative impact on the safety, health, and well-being of people of color, families of color, and communities of color. The Revere City Council unconditionally supports all people of color and stands in solidarity with those who suffer oppression, and promises to engage each and every resident within our community to actively take a stand against exclusion, inequality, racism, and violence. Hate has no place within the city of Revere.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I know that I presented this motion. I would imagine that my fellow councilors would have very little to disagree with on this. But I did want to ask that if you could respect my feelings and allow a few special members to speak on this topic and heed some of our time to them. If we do have a number of people in the audience that wish to speak, then we would grant them that time. But I would like to heed my time to 4 special individuals who helped really open my eyes a little bit more to this understanding in Revere. So we have in attendance, we have Brandon Brito, Matthew Brito, Elijah Nader, and Taylor Jufrey Catalano. I'd like to heed my time to them.
Mr. President, before we go forward,
Yes.
I have very similar language, but I want to go with your language. I like it better. Madam Clerk, if we can withdraw 15, I'd appreciate it so we don't have redundancy.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
And if, with your permission, if I could heed my time to these 4 young individuals.
Absolutely.
Okay. The floor is yours, Mr. Brito, Mr. Nader, and Taylor.
All right, can you guys hear me good?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Good evening, everybody. First off, we'd like to thank everybody for having us here. In troubling times like these, when our country is divided, the people in our community rely on our leaders to uplift our spirits and bring us together. So in times like these, it doesn't matter what your political beliefs are. What matters is that we come together to embrace and be proud of what makes us different, to prove to those that hold prejudices and practice racist ideologies that when we come together and love and care for one another, racism, hate, and bigotry are no match for the people of Revere. We are not politicians, and we don't intend on being politicians. We're just simply young, lifelong members of this city that want to see the leaders of Revere acknowledge hate and bigotry, bring our community together, and amplify the voices of the minority groups that reside here. We'd like to discuss and brainstorm some ideas for events we can hold whenever the city thinks is the safest time to go out and gather in public.
Brandon?
Yep.
You there?
Yep, I'm still here.
All right. We appreciate that conversation, and like I mentioned, I appreciated your group reaching out to us and opening our ears and eyes up just a little bit more than we initially probably thought they were. So, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Mr. Britt, this group has a couple social media pages if you'd like to share to help support with your efforts in Revere. Would you like to share that?
Yeah. So on Facebook, we have a Facebook page, the Revere Coalition for Peace. Again, that's the Revere Coalition for Peace on Facebook. And we do have an Instagram page with which is also Revere Coalition for Peace, but the @ is @ Revere for Peace. So you guys are welcome to like and follow it if you guys wish to do so.
Thank you. And I will go back to the counselors, and then I would go back to the attendees. And I know Dimple Reyna wishes to speak. I'm going to go back to the counselors and then go back to the attendees. So we have Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you, Brandon, for coming forward and more importantly, standing tall. I can tell you that everybody here on this council stands with you and stands against racism in our community as well as hate. What happened to George Floyd was an abomination. It should never happen. But it also led light to what's going on in America, and it now gives us an ability to move forward and talk about what's going on in our communities, in our country. And I want to thank you for bringing that forward.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Morbido.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I just say racism is one of the greatest evils in our world. Therefore, those conversations about race, racism, and racial justice is for the greater good of that evil. A joint statement from this honorable body to condemn police brutality and to condemn racism is imperative, especially now in this historic time when people all over the world are saying enough is enough. This is a time when moral leadership and strong actions are needed from the City Council. So I commend you on putting this forward.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just really want to thank you guys for standing up and what you believe in and working so hard to represent our city so well. 10 years ago, I graduated from Revere High, and I think that you're continuing a legacy of really strong Revere students and people that want to make a difference. So I applaud you for, taking an issue that means something to you and that means something to all of us, and for doing it in a respectful way and for working with your community to make sure that everybody is safe and heard. And we see you, we hear you, and we're here to support you. So thank you for everything that you've done, and really, we're really proud of you. It's moving, and it's really great to see the next generation stepping up and standing for our cause.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Powers, then Counselor Guanasso.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you sit and reflect, you realize that there is good and bad that comes from every incident that happens. The bad was that George Floyd was taken from his family at a relatively young age, was murdered on the streets by a person that you would hope would be standing right there to protect you, but that wasn't the case. The good is that incident brought out the good in most everybody in this country and throughout the world. It has finally set the United States of America on a path to eliminate hate and prejudice throughout this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Guanasso.
This message is to Brandon and his friends, who's done a remarkable job in presenting themselves. Brandon, your delivery before the Revere City Council this evening was very encouraging. Every word you said had meaningful thought. You did it and said it the way it should be said, in a manner in which reflects upon all of us. I am very, very proud to say you are a product of Revere, proud to stand beside you in what you've had to say. I wish that the rest of the country could hear what's happening in Little Revere, Massachusetts, with some of its own people who are doing and saying things in a peaceful and polite manner, and yet being very objective. What you had to say to us this evening and to the community was nothing short of remarkable. You should be proud of yourself. Your group should be proud of themselves for the way you've conducted yourself. I will spread the word and tell everybody I know what wonderful people we have. I know we already had it before, but you exemplify that. And I had friends that I worked side by side with for many, many years, and they were of color. And I loved all of them. We worked well together. So I appreciate what you're doing. I understand what you're saying. And I hope that we can finally put this ugly thing behind us and make a better Revere for all of us. Thank you for your services.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. I can't be any more prouder than Brandon, Matthew, and the other two kids. I know their mother, and she did a great job bringing them up and getting them through high school. And I was on their first Zoom meeting last week, and It was just a great feeling knowing that there's kids following our footsteps and want to correct a lot of the things that we didn't do in the past. Now, I graduated from Revere High School 55 years ago. I know Council Guanasso even further back, and Council Powers even further back. So we've been through a lot. We have almost, 200 years of service since we graduated high school. And these kids just did a great job. They worked with us. They worked with the police chief and the mayor and the fire chief, state police. So everything worked out well, peacefully, which was one of my main things. And I know a lot of other people also. But what they did, by canceling the first one, bringing back a shorter one a little later and another one tomorrow night, I just ask everybody involved, please keep it peaceful and keep it enjoyable, and let's get to the point and get this thing behind us. So thank you, guys. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Zambuto?
Thank you, Mr. President. I was on that Zoom meeting last week, and they say that out of adversity, sometimes some great things happen. I met these great young people, and they truly gave me hope that the future is bright in Revere. I am so impressed with these young people, and I just can't thank you guys enough. It just restored my faith in youth and really gave me hope for the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Sereno?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to echo the comments of my previous councilors, Brandon, Matthew, Elijah, and Taylor. You guys, we're very proud of you. You guys have done amazing work in such a short time, bringing the city together and bringing light to this issue. And unfortunately, in 2020, as disgusting as it is, systemic racism and blatant racism still is alive and well. Sometimes, even our own residents have experienced that, and it's heartbreaking, and we do need to address it, and we need to address it head on and condemn it when we see it. And so again, just great work, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McKenna?
Thank you, Mr. President. As a former teacher, counselor, and a resident, I just want to say that I'm very, very proud of all of you. Being respectful last week and knowing that we're in a pandemic and keeping people safe and holding this off was unbelievable. I know the council and I will work with you in support of whatever you want to go forward with in the future. Thank you so much
Information.
for all the Revere residents. Thank you.
State your point, Councilor.
Councilor McKenna, through you, Mr. President. There is an event this Tuesday at 4:30 p.m.
I know.
Okay.
I know. But they said that they would like to do something else. I think that's what Brandon said.
There's a few other groups in that, but yeah. Councilor Visconti?
I just want to echo those sentiments as well, and state that the last week I've been on those Zoom meetings as well. They have acted professional, like young adults that make Revere proud, and to bypass that march for the betterment of the city, showed how much love they have for the city. And with this, with the new march happening in on Tuesday, I hope that it is a peaceful march, that you can get more done in a peaceful way than how some of the other cities have been acting. So thank you for the thoughts. Thank you for your concerns. We couldn't be more proud of you guys.
Thank you, Councilor. And I know we have Ms. Reyna in attendance. Would you like to speak?
Rana.
Ms. Rana, sorry.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Dimple.
Can you hear me? Thank you. Good evening, counselors. Dimple Rana, 49 South Ave, Revere. I just have a few words to say, and I also want to thank Brandon, Matthew, Elijah, and Taylor for their efforts. And I know that I'm going to continue to work with you as well. And I have reached out to all of you, and I want to make sure that your voices are continue to be uplifted and heard, and also your actions and the love that you have for the city. I do want to talk tonight as a person of color and a lifelong Revere resident who I've experienced a lot of racism in my life. I have witnessed it. I have also lost a lot of people to it. I know in the news, we're hearing a lot about George Floyd, and perhaps you've also heard the name Andrea Jenkins. Andrea is an old friend of mine, and we've been friends for a long time, and way before we were in politics. And Andrea just so happens to be a current member of the Minneapolis City Council from the 8th Ward, which is the ward that George Floyd was killed in. She, in an interview recently said, COVID-19 is not the only disease that is a public health emergency. We've been living with another disease in public health and a public health emergency way before COVID, racism. And with that being said, I want us as a city and with this motion to go further with what's been presented and condemn the death of George Floyd, but also as a city declare racism as a public health emergency. Racism has been endured by people of color, not just for decades, but it's been woven into the American fabric, from the genocide of Native Americans to bringing Africans to this country as slaves, to currently where we have children locked up in cages in immigration detention centers. And today, mapping police violence reports that Black people are 24% of those killed, but they are only 13% of the population. So I just want to take a few more minutes and to read a very non-comprehensive list of the names of Black people killed by the police and how they were killed since Eric Garner's death in 2014. Eric Garner had just broken up a fight, according to witness testimony, before the police killed him. Azell Ford was walking in his neighborhood. Michelle Kusuo was changing the lock on her home's door when police arrived to take her to a mental health facility. Tanisha Anderson was having a bad mental health episode and her brother called 911. Tamir Rice was playing in a park. Natasha McKenna was having a schizophrenic episode when she was tased in Fairfax, Virginia. Walter Scott was going to an auto parts store. Betty Jones answered the door to let Chicago police officers in to help her upstairs neighbors, who called 911 to resolve a domestic dispute. Philando Castile was driving home from dinner with his girlfriend. Botham Jean was eating ice cream in his living room in Dallas. Tatiana Jefferson was babysitting her nephew at home in Fort Worth, Texas. Eric Reason was pulling into a parking spot at a local chicken and fish shop. Dominic Clayton was sleeping in her bed. Breonna Taylor was also sleeping in her bed. And George Floyd was at the grocery store. So tomorrow, I know you've been invited, and I would like to invite you again on behalf of the Black and Brown youth, Revere youth, who have organized tomorrow's march, and ask you to join them, me, in our community in a peaceful march for Black Lives Matter, which will start at 4:30 p.m. at the bandstand on Revere Beach and will end at City Hall. And if you have any questions or would like to learn more about the event, the youth have created a Facebook event, and they also have an email that they also have set up, which is revereblm@gmail.com. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Rana. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
At this point, if I'll offer really brief comments because I wanted to give my time to the young adults in the room. I've done most of my time in Revere, I've spent coaching youth and cheering on sports in the city, whether it's baseball or football organizations or basketball. And a lot of times I've been cheering on people of color. And I recognize myself that I have to do more of a better job of cheering on people of color off the field as much as I do on the field. And that's my promise to you, and that's my promise to the people of Revere. I'd like to take a moment of silence for the many lives that we have seen and lost through these racist events. So we can take a moment of silence. Appreciate that. Thank you. All in favor of the motion? Sorted.
Aye.
Thank you. Sorted.
Aye.
Calendar item number 13, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the mayor requests inspectional services in the Revere Police Department to investigate the following issues at 29 South Burnett Street. 1, boat, skidoo, and unregistered pickup truck in the driveway. 2, illegal basement apartment. And 3, loud and late night music. It's my understanding that the police have been to this property several times for these issues.
Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. At this point, the neighbors are up in arms over this. I just got text today about the same thing. They're over there playing their music loud all hours of the night. The police come play cat and mouse with them. I'd like to have inspectional services look at them and, do a little bit more than just having the police go up there. Chief Guido knows about this. He's been, answering my text messages, thankfully. I haven't tortured him so much on that particular address, but at this point, it's at least 2 to 3 times a day. I'm getting a text message and a phone call that these people are, got their music blaring. And it's not just one neighbor calling me, it's several neighbors calling me.
Thank you, Councilor. The councilors? Being my ward, I think I should help get involved with you as well, Council. But if I can, I did ask the mayor, and I know everyone here has received noise complaints in the last couple of weeks. The weather's getting nicer. People are stuck at home. They're partying more in their backyards, which we want them to stay home. But I did ask the mayor to send out some public service announcements through the channels 311, et cetera, to just talk about being more of a cooperative neighbor and someone that's more respectful of the noise ordinance as well as fireworks. So, Council, I'll work with you on furnace and we'll go from there. All in favor?
Aye.
Madam Clerk, I believe number 15, Councilor Rotundo is asked to strike since we.
Sure.
Right?
Yep, we have number 14, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the mayor request the MBTA to trim the branches hanging over onto 675 Beach Street. Squirrels are jumping onto the house. Also, the trees are in a position that with high winds, it can knock down electric and cable wires going to the property.
Councilor Rotundo. So, all in favor? So ordered.
Calendar item number 16, motion presented by Councilors Visconti and Powers, that the mayor request the traffic division to enforce the do not enter restriction for vehicular traffic entering on Harris Street from American Legion Highway.
Councilor Visconti or Councilor Powers?
I have received several calls about this, that cars coming from American Legion are cutting through onto Harris Street, and they're speeding. They're going up the hill, and there are kids on that street, and residents are complaining. So, and I know it's a do not enter. There's a do not enter sign there. I believe there are some restrictions on that do not enter sign, which I don't believe you can see, but there are restrictions. I think they are from 7 to 10 and from 2 to 7, but I don't think they are adhered to at all. And I believe there is a resident that has joined us that could explain more, since he does live on the street. But it is a concerning, they are speeding. I think it's something that we should look at. And talking to Council Powers, I know it's been looked at before. And what happens is they may have a police officer there for a time being. It slows down the traffic and then continues back on. So if something can be done to just try to put that in the schedule somehow, where it's looked at on a regular basis, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Visconti is 100% right. Some time ago, we had signs that restricted traffic going up there, particularly during the morning hours. The problem that comes about is people coming up American Legion Highway rather than go into Bell Circle and wait their turn. They go up Harris Street, over Harris Street, down onto Beach Street, across Beach Street, and out to the VFW, Parkway out there, which, it saves them 5 or 10 minutes. But while it saves them 5 or 10 minutes, it could be costing someone serious injury or their life. I think the only way you correct that situation, and I don't care if they live in the city or don't live in the city, if they're violating that sign down at the beginning of the street and causing a potential problem, then they should be ticketed. No question about it. It's at the top of that hill on Harris Street. It could be a disaster if 2 cars were just a foot over to the left more than they should be, one going and one coming. You could have a very, very serious accident up there. So I would ask that the mayor direct the police department to pay.
Looks like Councilor Powers froze up a little bit, but we have a few, any other councilors wishing to speak? I know we have a few attendees wishing to speak on this. We have Andrew Raitano. Andrew? Mr. Raitano?
Yeah, can you hear me okay, Mr.
Yes,
President?
sir. How are you?
Good, good. How are you doing this evening?
Name and address for the record, please.
Andrew Raitano, 186 Harris Street.
Okay.
So thank you for taking the time to hear me. This is an issue that the residents have been dealing with on the street for a long time. Somehow they appointed me the leader of this cause. I don't know if there's a few others that are on this call as well. But I've lived at 186 Harris Street for 7 years, since 2013. Before that, I spent 10 years in the condo building at the bottom of Harris Street at the intersection of Harris and Beach Street. The issue here is the speeding. I mean, these cars are coming up here 40, 50 miles an hour with no regard for anyone. You can come out and talk to residents, and we hold our breath when we pull out of our driveways. And God forbid if you stop. If you stop and you try to back in, you get some nice hand gestures and other verbal greetings because, God forbid you made them slow down and, do that. The other thing is there's a lot of confusion with the signage.
You come off American Legion, there's signs that say don't make a right turn. Then there's a one-way sign with the do not enter. You go up another 20 feet, there's another do not enter. Then finally, you get to the do not enter with the times. I'm confused like most people on the street. What good is that do not enter with the times if the first 3 sets of signs are valid? You shouldn't even be getting up that far to even see if you can even go up here during certain times.
Right. Sounds like some good discussion, maybe to get the traffic commission involved as well with the signage, Council Visconti, wouldn't you think?
I couldn't agree more.
And we have another attendee. Thank you, Mr. Raitano. We have another attendee that wishes to speak, Eric Lampedecchio. Let me unmute you. Hold on. You got it? Good.
Yep. Eric Lampedecchio, 43 Tapley Avenue. The issues here on Harris Street have been an issue for a very long time. I've been submitting tickets to the city since C-Click Fix. So it goes back at least 4 or 5 years to my knowledge, and probably well beyond that. And talking to the residents in the area, one of them put it so eloquently, she called it a pervasive disregard for the law, as no one's paying attention to those do not enters and people are just flying up. I've spoken to the traffic commission a few times on this. The signs aren't doing it. You know, there's a couple of other options that might be more viable. One of them could be a traffic island. So maybe a traffic island could prevent cars from shooting up there. I know that people aren't slowing down. The fact of the matter is they're coming off of American Legion Highway and hitting Harris Street at full speed. So whether it's a traffic island, I know some residents even took it upon themselves and put speed bumps in the road by themselves a few years ago. There needs to be something more than just signage and occasional enforcement. It needs to be a permanent, more solid fix. It just can't be, we address this when it flares up. It needs to be addressed permanently. And I'd really like to see a long-term solution. Some other solutions residents have suggested are changing the direction of the street, making a one-way from Beach Street towards American Legion so that folks can't come up that way. Another suggestion from a resident in that area was a flashing speed limit sign. So these are all things that the residents down there would like to see, or at least one of these things, and hopefully mitigate this problem once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor, you wish to place this to order on this motion and then probably see it in front of traffic commission?
Sure.
And on top of it, you think we could also, Madam Clerk, if we can ask the police to do a little bit more enforcement on that area? I think that might help.
Point of information.
Counselor?
I spoke to Sergeant Janino about a month and a half ago, and he plans to put the speedometer on that street at the beginning this month, or I think at this month he plans on doing it. So he's on top of that.
Great, thank you. So on the motion, all in favor? So ordered.
And calendar item number 17, motion presented by Councilor Sereno, that the mayor request the traffic commission to look at the feasibility of extending the double lane on Washington Avenue at Linden Square from where it currently ends in front of 810 Washington Ave to the edge of the bridge just after 770 Washington Avenue.
Thank you, Councilor Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this was actually suggested to me during last year's campaign, and I wanted to bring it up. There seems to be enough room on that street at the end, right by Linden Square, to kind of extend that double yellow line and make that second lane a bit longer. Because as it stands right now, you know, I'm sure all of you drive through Linden Square. People are constantly crossing the double yellow line to get into that second lane. So if we can elongate that second lane, it would, one, prevent people from breaking the law and going into the other side of the street. But more importantly, too, it will maybe help to decrease traffic on Washington Ave by about 8 to 10 car lengths. So if we take those, you know, give or take, 6, 7, 8 cars that would be going straight and left, we would be able to reduce traffic on Washington Ave going toward Stop and Shop. So that was the idea there. I'm obviously not a traffic engineer. I don't know how feasible it is. To the naked eye, it appears that there would be enough room, and I think it would be great and help to alleviate traffic, which is, that dirty T word that we always hear about. If we can do anything to alleviate some of it, it would be good. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other councilors on this motion? All in favor? Opposed, so ordered. At this point, Counselor Sereno and Counselor Morbido both have points of personal privilege. Counselor Sereno?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take a point of personal privilege to honor the memory of a gentleman who we lost 2 weeks ago now, Mr. Michael Fortin. Mike Fortin was the Cub Master at not St. Mary's, wow. He was the Pac-15 Cub Master. They meet at the American Legion Hall. He was the beloved husband of Colleen Fortin and also the father of Christopher, Kayla, and Brian. And for those of us who knew Mike, he truly loved Revere and our community and was always trying to improve our city and improve our community. I think he did work with the Revere Youth Baseball League as well. So I just wanted to take a moment of silence and honor the memory of Mike Fortin. He was a good man, gone far too soon. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
And Counselor Morbido? Mute.
There we go. So this month marks 51 years of commemorating the Stonewall riots and 50 years of Boston Gay Pride. So I want to wish everyone a happy Pride Month for the month of June.
Thank you, Counselor. And I know that there's going to be a flag raising at City Hall potentially next weekend or this coming weekend. The mayor will be sending something out. And one last point of personal privilege for Counselor Visconti. Mute. We almost did it, almost made it, Counselor. You're on mute, hold on. Can you unmute, Counselor?
Sorry. Just a point of information that I think June 15th starts the enforcement of street sweeping. So I just want to let the residents know that to move your cars accordingly because they're going to be out there ticketing. So just wanted to let all the residents know.
Thanks for the reminder, Counselor. And as everyone knows, beginning of phase 2 per the governor's orders today did allow some of our parks to reopen. And I hope that your children are able to enjoy it and you're able to enjoy the free space in Revere, obviously practicing the safety precautions. And with that being said, the next meeting will be scheduled on June 22nd, regular council meeting. And in the meantime, next week, Councilor Powers will be scheduling his Ways and Means Subcommittee. That is all. We motion to adjourn. Supported. Have a great evening. Thank you very much. Take care.